Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, Essential Criteria for Choosing Hybrid Cloud Data Protection Solutions. Today's webinar is sponsored by Veeam and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy with Actual Tech Media, a future B2B company, and I am so excited to be your moderator for today's webinar. Now, as organizations accelerate their hybrid cloud strategies to gain agility, scalability, and improve data management, one critical challenge rises to the top: protecting your data across complex multi-cloud environments. And with cyber threats evolving and data sprawling across on-premises and cloud platforms, choosing the right data protection solution is no longer optional. It is mission critical to safeguard sensitive information and maintain business continuity. Super excited to have in the house Veeam, and also we're going to be getting some insights on the GigaOm Radar Report for hybrid cloud data protection today. So you're going to be getting an insider look at how the top solutions stack up and what key criteria matters most in today's IT landscape. So let's dive into it. I'm super excited. You can obviously tell there's a lot to cover today, and well, I think there's a little bit of housekeeping we need to do just to make sure you get the most out of today's session. So again, my name is Mackenzie Puddesy. Introductions are always in order, and I've noticed a bunch of you saying hi, hello over in the chat tab there. So if you haven't yet found that, why don't you hop over there and say a hello, hola, bonjour, aloha, whatever greeting you'd like to give to the rest of your participants, to the rest of the crowd out there in the audience today. And a few things you can use this for. So obviously, highs and hellos, great introductions. Love seeing those. But you can also pop in there, give your comments, share your experience, crack some jokes, any feedback that you want to give during today's session. Now, if you do have questions and you want those questions to be addressed by our expert speakers today, well, I will be joining for live Q&A and going to be posing your questions to our presenters on today's session. So if you do want to have a question answered, well, hop over to that Q&A tab, just two tabs over, and that is where you can put those in the queue, and I'll do my best to get as many of those questions addressed during today's session as possible. Now, in the Docs tab, you are going to find some great resources, so definitely go check out the Docs tab there. You definitely don't want to sleep on those. And for those of you who are going to be here following along, which I assume pretty much all of you are going to be following along, I have this here, the 2024 GigaOm Radar Report for hybrid cloud data protection, which I mentioned we're going to be sharing insights from during today's session. So if you want to grab that now, scan the QR. You can download that. It is also linked in the Docs tab. But either way, you want to make sure you get this. Follow along as the results are discussed, and you'll be able to make sure you don't get lost in the pudding. Is that a thing? Proof in the pudding? I don't know. But either way, grab that now, grab it later, but don't sleep on those awesome resources, because you will definitely want to walk away with all the information that's being provided today. Now, aside from awesome information up for grabs, well, we also have a $250 Best Question gift card from Amazon up for grabs today. So if you want to know how to qualify, the full T's and C's are in the handouts tab, or in the docs tab rather, and you can grab that handout there, figure out if you qualify, but you do need to be live and present on the duration of today's session to win, and I'll be calling out the winner at the end of today's session. So keep your fingers and toes crossed, but that is how you can win your $250 Amazon gift card. And with that, let's get our speakers on out here with us. We've got Brad Lynch, who's the Director of Enterprise Strategy at Veeam, joining us today, as well as Daryl Kent, Field CTO and Analyst at GigaOm. So super excited for these two gentlemen to come out here. We're going to be able to pick their brains, learn from them. And again, I will be voicing your questions, so feel free to send those in on the Q&A tab during the session. They'll be chatting back and forth, and then I'll be joining to voice those at the end. So with that, Brad.
Thank you, Mackenzie. So my name is Brad Lynch, Director of Enterprise Strategy over here at Veeam. Really excited to do this webinar with you, Daryl. Essentially, my role and experience in the industry is you can kind of think of me as a field CTO specific for large enterprises, large companies here at Veeam. And much of my conversations have to do with this exact topic, talking about the journey to move to the cloud, or in some cases, the journey moving back to the cloud, and the journey of protecting those workloads in a hybrid environment. So, really excited and passionate about this topic, and couldn't do it with anybody better but yourself, Daryl Kent, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you for having me on as well. I'm excited about this because this has been my life. Data storage, data protection for over 50 years. Like you, I am a field CTO here at GigaOm, and I'm also the category lead in this space. So I spend my time talking to providers like yourself and end users to link up the solution providers with the solution set to provide the business outcomes they're looking for. So I spend my days talking about this topic all day long. So while we're on it then, what we're talking about here, it should have been apparent in the title, but the hybrid cloud data protection. And the secret here is in the name. It is about hybrid cloud. Now, this is no longer a trend. It's an architecture strategy. And hybrid cloud to some means you're doing some on-prem, you're doing some cloud. What it means in this context is it's much more than that. It's not just cloud versus on-prem or cloud plus on-prem. It's also software as a service. It's also cloud native. It's also multi-cloud. And therein lies the secret sauce of this entire presentation and this entire webinar, in that there's a lot to consider. There's a lot of complexity in environments like that. And what might seem simple or good enough may not be simple or good enough when it comes down to what you're really trying to do here. It's an architecture strategy. Resilience is the new availability. It's no longer about backing up files. What you're really doing here is you're defending the operation. So we can't emphasize this enough. It's data protection plus. It's continuity, it's compliance, it's recovery. It's no longer a matter of if, in terms of protecting the data and having it accessed by bad actors. It's no longer when. It's how bad is it going to be. So you have to have all three: continuity, compliance, and recovery. And the complexity and sprawl are what's undermining the control. So with that, anything in there that I misspoke about there, Brad?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and just to come over the top, it's such a good point about resiliency, and you can speak to this even better than I can, and you just did, but the data protection industry has changed as a whole. It's gone from the industry name has changed, for goodness sake, right? It's gone from data protection essentially to data resilience. That's how a lot of vendors talk about themselves now, and there's a huge agent for that, which is cyber attacks, right? So before, your environments, whether it was on-prem, cloud, or hybrid, they were architected to fight against a typical disaster, which might be a flood, a power outage, a natural disaster, whatever it might be, versus a cyber attack is so much different for several ways. And one of the common questions I ask enterprises that I talk to is I ask if their RTOs are the same for DR as they are for CR, cyber recovery, because ideally the answer that comes back is they are not the same. And because there's several other factors. As difficult as a DR is, we've all been involved in them. We've done DREs, disaster recovery exercises. You have the benefit of several things. Number one, it doesn't occur potentially as often, like we just said, it's a natural disaster. Number two, you might have some preparation time. You might know there's a hurricane coming or a tornado coming. You might have a couple days to prepare for that event. And third and fourth, that's really important, is in a DR, you have the benefit of knowing you're going to use your latest restore point. You know that's a good, valid restore point to use, and you know you can restore directly into production. There shouldn't be an issue with that. All those things are completely untrue in a CR, in a cyber recovery, right? You might not use your latest restore point. You probably shouldn't restore directly into production and risk reinfection. You're going to get no lead time or preparation time, and the occurrence of the event could be much more frequent. So all those factors equal, unfortunately, an RTO that probably should be different than for a DR, or at least an event that should be much more practiced. Just going through a
Yeah.
DRE is not the same as going through a CRE. So I just wanted to add that to your point of resilience. It's completely changed the name of the game, and it's elevated. It's kind of brought. I've literally gone into basements. I've gone to companies, and the backup admin is literally in the basement. And I think this has literally elevated that type of admin, that type of persona, where I've seen them now be part of the security team. Their titles change to be resiliency engineers or rapid response engineers or whatever it might be. So I think it's elevated the entire industry, the personas in these industries, and I think that's a good thing, right?
I absolutely agree with you 100% there, and you brought up a number of really good points. One is you use data a lot, and the reason you use data a lot is it's now everywhere. And so the protection around that must be too, hence the name hybrid, right? It's everywhere, so protection must be there as well. But what you really focused on there was this evaluation shift, if you will. The conversation has moved, as you noted, from recovery time, and I don't even think you can do an RTO on cyber. You can plan for RTO in DR or operational recovery, but in terms of cyber recovery, it's not recovery time; it's resilience, confidence. The term you used and I see a lot as well is rapid response teams. It's no longer we can do it in 3 seconds. It's as rapidly and as effectively and as completely as possible. And what is our confidence in getting that done? And so from that evaluation shift, what you're really looking for in a modern data protection solution, given that you're more interested in resilience confidence than you are necessarily in recovery time, although that's important, is it has to be able to scale, it has to be secure, and it has to be as simple as practical. And in that order, scale, security, and simplification.
Yeah, it's a really good point to think about it that way. It's almost like a vendor SLA, right? When you have a contract with a vendor for their SLA, for their support SLAs, those times aren't in times to remediate the issue, right? It doesn't say in 1 hour we'll for sure have this problem solved. It says, whatever, 1 hour we'll respond. That'll be our response time. So you bring up a really good point about that SLAs is it's really hard to guarantee an outcome in a certain amount of time. And anybody that does should probably kind of raise your antenna and make you a little weary. And we see that. And to be honest, I think we can be guilty of that too in our architecture. And I think there's architecture all across our industry and other industries that can be a bit disingenuous in terms of, hit by a cyber attack, we'll have you back up and running in 24 hours, file a support case, you'll go to our ransomware support SWAT team or whatever terminology they use. And I say it's disingenuous because recovery is just a chink in the chain that happens in a response. And honestly, it's the last chink in the chain. When you look at that incident response lifecycle, it's properly detecting the attack, it's properly containing and understanding the scope of the attack, and then it's properly eradicating the threat actors. And all those are sequential events that take time. And then you get to recovery. You can't put recovery before any of those steps, or you risk reinfection, you risk not addressing the proper problem at hand. So you just bring up a lot of good points that I'm piggybacking off of, but it's just important to really, it's more than anything, it's important to prepare, but educate yourself on what this is really going to look like if you haven't already been through it. That best prepares you. We have a Veeam over here acquired an incident response firm called Coveware, so they're Coveware by Veeam now. And something their CEO says is, you're not going to rise to the occasion of a ransomware attack. You're going to fall to your level of preparation, which is a really powerful quote. Pretty sure he's told it from like some Taekwondo class, but it still sounds really good. So we talk about and we work with our clients a lot to make sure they're best prepared and educated as possible.
Well, and that's why I used, it's not if nor when, it's how bad do you wish it to be, or how bad is it going to be. That's exactly the point there. It is, you should practice it, but I use scale, secure, and simplify, and then I qualify simplify and make it as simple as practical. And you just brought up, it's not as simple as people sometimes make it out to be. There's nothing simple about this, but you need to make it as simple as practical, so that it's clean and complete. Einstein, I like to paraphrase Einstein in that particular. He made a statement along the lines of, make things as simple as possible, but no simpler.
Well, I talk to my team about when I always say you can, and this is a good thing to practice in personal life as well, just communicating with spouses or friends or family. But I always say you can start simple and then get complex. You can't do the reverse. The reverse is nearly impossible. If you start complex, it's too late. You can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle and simplify it. So to your point, couldn't agree more.
Well, starting simple, so maybe part of that is, some folks like to say, well, look, I'm already in the cloud, or I'm familiar with the cloud. I'll just use the native tools. Or I'm already on-prem and I already have a provider. I'll just use their native tools. And by your start simple, I mean, that's one place to start.
Mm-hmm.
But in our view, those tools can get you started, but they can rarely finish you, especially if you are in this new normal of an architecture strategy called hybrid.
Yeah, well, perfect segue to get our train back on the tracks here, and that's such a good point. And I kind of see this go on in a journey, and it's different with enterprises, SMB. It's different on the size of the company, but particularly in these larger accounts, to your exact point, whether it's a lift and shift to the cloud, which is really dangerous from a cost perspective, but we can double click on that later, or it's spinning up net new workloads or cost optimized workloads in the cloud. That's the simple button, right? It's and to be honest, it's not a bad product. I've played around. I've used all the native GCP, Azure, AWS tools. The things that come into play there is I see a 6 to 18 months journey go on where the persona changes. You kind of have these multiple effects happening where now when that cloud protection happens in the cloud versus on-prem, the persona potentially changes from a typical kind of data protection admin to these workloads got spun up in the cloud, and a cloud ops or cloud admin just kind of checked a box for backup. And then on top of that, as this 6 to 18 months journey goes on, there's a cost component that really comes into play and becomes apparent. Sometimes it can seem very cost effective, or you don't really understand or think about the cost day one. And as those monthly bills come in and you get a total picture of what this looks like in terms of storage and snapshots and APIs and egress and all these different things, it's not as easy as just getting a quote that says, okay, this is going to be $100,000, right? There's all these different components in different areas that make it difficult to forecast. And then that's when I see the journey kind of come back to, everything's can be a bit cyclical, and it's like, hey, wait a second, don't we pay somebody to manage this and protect these workloads? Why am I doing it? And it's way more difficult than I thought it was. And plus, we have other workloads and other clouds or on-prem. Shouldn't this all just be done by a team or a person in one tool? And it's just interesting how that's what I see. I don't know what you see, Daryl, but I see that a lot.
Oh, well, we see the same thing. And I like the idea of time, 6 to 18 months, primarily because, this is not about the tools not being capable. They're capable for what you're using them for, when you're using them, at the time you start using them. But organizations, as you pointed out in what you just said, is they tend to outgrow those capabilities. So it's not like they're failing; they're outgrowing them. They're bringing in more personas, more players, more departments, more types of architectures, and the tools struggle to keep up. And so a comprehensive platform like what Veeam offers is tailor-made for that evolution. And in fact, you could even start simply with Veeam, but a lot of people don't. They start simply with what they know, and then they grow into, we need something. We've outgrown it. We need something a little bit more comprehensive here, because we're now getting we're managing multiple points. We have multiple attack surfaces now. We have multiple players with differing agendas and different budget control that we have to bring into play. And so you're moving into what we would call how we evaluate vendors in this space. And maybe now is a good transition time to go into that.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to bring up that report, and I think while we bring that up, just taking one step back of why hybrid cloud is almost more pertinent of a conversation than ever. Right, this is a topic that's been going on for a decade, but it's probably important to talk about why it's more pertinent than ever in this world of I kind of refer to it, it's a little extreme, but corporate ransomware, which more and more, and especially we see this in SMB, in the world of Broadcom and VMware, more and more clients are looking and evaluating other options, and especially in SMB, in a world where the vendor has done everything to signal to them that we don't have a lot of investment in SMB, trying to find the nicest way to put it, and in that world, you see that market really moving to other options, and in a hybrid cloud world, I mean, I've always said if somebody's going to leave VMware wholesale, they're going to go to most likely one of the cloud providers versus another hybrid provider. And there's a mix. I mean, that's a whole separate webinar. You kind of see all flavors of things. But in this world where they go to the cloud, it's important that they don't lose any of that feature functionality, right? VMware's a mature product, and every vendor's been protecting VMware for 10, 15, 20 years. And if I'm going to move my workload from VMware to the cloud, I need to get all the feature sets I'm accustomed to, right? Do I have the granular recovery options? Do I have the threat detection capabilities? Do I have the monitoring and dashboards that I expect, the compliance and audit reports, right? That feature functionality has to be parity across all those different workloads. Otherwise, to your point, it becomes more easy and relevant just to use potentially the native option that's available to me. That's kind of the simple button.
No, I mean, that's absolutely right. It's not only a consistency, continuity, compliance, it's also ecosystem integrations, what you're familiar with. And so if I did this correctly, you should now be seeing the actual radar.
Yeah, I see it.
And you can see there's a lot of folks in this space. The hybrid cloud data protection space is extremely competitive. And while Veeam has strengths, and we'll go into those, it's hard to be truly unique across those areas. So what you're really looking for is these other things that we just touched upon. We evaluate, we score vendors not by potential, but by execution. And the leaders are not just innovating, they're integrating. And so what you see here is the radar with multiple quadrants. Veeam sits in the maturity platform quadrant, although you'll notice that it's also very close to the line on innovation. And I think that's important because that's where we're going to find you all have some uniqueness that I think we should call out. What maturity means is you are providing an operation, a solution that is not going to risk operations, not going to require a lot of upskilling or retraining as you introduce fixes or new innovation features. It is operationally stable over the life of the planning period, typically the life of the contract, or at least several years. So there's a consistency and a stability to the operation. And the platform says you have a complete integrated 80th percentile or higher solution for this space, and this space being hybrid cloud data protection. Innovation says that you will innovate, and in innovating, you may put the operation at risk if they don't have the resources or the capabilities to absorb that innovation. So being in the stable quadrant is important in this space because, like I said up on top, we're not talking about backing up. We're talking about defending operations and impacting them as less and as few times as practical. So let's turn now to what we see in the radar when evaluating. What stood out to us wasn't just feature breadth, and we can go into those features, and I will somewhat. It is how Veeam is integrating their protection, recovery, and security across multi-cloud and hybrid environments. It's not is it's designed not just for hybrid environments, but for multi-cloud complexity, which gives IT and operations a unified plane across ecosystems, AWS, Azure, GCP, and on-prem systems. So it's the unification and the ecosystem. That's where modern platform players like yourselves stand apart. You don't just support multi-cloud, you simplify it. So in the feature set where you scored high, and in the radar we have key features which are technical. We have emerging features which I'll come back to here, which are commitment to the industry and acknowledging that there are things that are emerging that need to be innovated on to provide in the platform, and also business operations, scalability, impact. Where you scored high in all three of those, you were either first or second in every one of those, which is why you're a leader. Your unified platform, we talked about immutability and ransomware recovery readiness. We haven't talked a whole lot about other than that feature is very, very strong here. Zero trust, ease of use, all these things that are in the tables themselves, broad ecosystem, third-party integration. I could go on, and I'll go on once more. Compliance posture, which includes something we haven't yet talked about, which I think you may have touched on, is sovereignty and regulatory mapping, which is a compliance issue. This is what put you firmly in the platform maturity and leader quadrant. But having said that, there's much, much more. This is one of the radars that typically when we do emerging features, we do emerging features, 2 or 3 of those. This particular radar, and I pulled it off because I don't want to make you all dizzy, has 8 of them, 8 emerging features. It's hard for any providers to stay up with 1 or 2. In this space, we're looking at blockchain. We're looking at, for data integrity, we're looking at quantum resistant encryption, serverless function security, AI-based anomaly detection, immutable backups, data masking and tokenization, self-healing, and SASE. Those are hard to keep up with. And what sets Veeam apart from everyone else, in my mind, is you are leading in our analysis in every one of those. And to me, that's not only a commitment to the to the space, but it's showing the capability of your organization and the focus of the organization to understand these are things that can be extinction level events. And they must be in the platform and they must be in the capabilities. And there's a commitment there.
Yeah, that's well. It's great to see that kind of the analysis that goes in that report, and of course, selfishly love to see Veeam do so well in it. And there's a few things just to add, additional credibility to that report in terms of what I see on a daily, or weekly basis, talking to some organizations that we have. I mean, I think of Fortune 100 companies that use Veeam in this hybrid way and meet so many of those check boxes that you just talked about. I mean, right, there's a large financial services company that uses us to protect over 15,000 EC2 instances, right? AWS EC2 instances in addition to their on-prem environment. There's a large healthcare company that uses us to protect over 20,000 workloads, and that's a mix between AWS, GCP, and Azure, which is a perfect kind of use case for what we're talking about in this hybrid world. And, there's a few others as well, but, if I had to kind of cherry pick and summarize the value that they all saw, right? Because these are huge, large Fortune 100 companies. All of them were using the native tool at first, all of them. And like you said, it doesn't mean that the tool isn't very capable. It is, but as that organization matures in their cloud journey or their hybrid cloud journey, why would you, pretty much any large organization, and not even large, medium-sized organization, is going to use more than just one cloud vendor, especially going back into that term in corporate ransomware. In this world of corporate ransomware, you might not want all your eggs in one basket. And, the value that Veeam really brought, to summarize it in a few points. Number one, a lot of it had to do with cost. I know I mentioned that earlier, but I just can't emphasize enough. There's a lot of hidden costs associated with some other tooling out there that at first, it's like it's almost like nothing's free. If nothing's free in this world, it might appear appealing, but there's always that fine print that it doesn't mean that they're trying to hide it from you. It's just being educated on understanding what that total cost of ownership of the solution really looks like. I talk about day one and day two cost a lot in my role, and what I mean by that is there's day one cost, which are the cost of the solution to do data protection, to do backup. That's pretty easy to figure out for the most part. But you don't buy backup to backup, right? You buy backup to recover in an incident, whatever that incident might be. And that I refer to those as day two costs. And understanding what those day two costs might be for your business, whether it's operational recoveries or full scale disaster type of recoveries, I think is important for the business to have an understanding on. And then from there, right? So getting away from kind of the financial pieces of it, we talk a lot here about resiliency. Resiliency equals portability, right? So one of the huge value adds value propositions of Veeam is that ability to move workloads cross-platform. Azure, AWS GCP, VMware, AWS, right? There's really no permutation that doesn't exist within Veeam. And what's really, really critical about that is moving that workload in its native format. Some of the other options out there, you could absolutely restore on-prem to the cloud, but you have to run that hypervisor in the cloud, which is very costly and kind of takes away the whole point of hybrid cloud. Like you're still using the same hypervisor. That hypervisor now just lives in the cloud at a premium cost. So that portability, that flexibility is, I see, really important to our clients. And then a lot of the things you mentioned towards the end there in terms of if I have a workload, it's immutable. Doesn't matter if it's IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, on-prem, whatever. Like it has to be immutable. That's table stakes at this point. And I refer to that as step zero a lot. Like there's a lot of bells and whistles that we offer that our competitors offer, but step zero is immutability. Like there's no point of moving on and adopting a lot of those fancy bells and whistles if you don't have an immutable copy. That is so critical in step zero, and I think everybody understands that at that point. But then once you get beyond step zero, having those same security features, threat detection capabilities, integrating with your SIM tools, forwarding critical events to the security team, having incident response ready and preparing you. To bring it back to when we were first talking about it, preparation really is so key. Preparation is your best chance at thwarting a threat actor. It really is. And just to put some data behind that, you talk about it's not even if, but when, it's how bad it's going to be. And by the way, I've stolen that quote from you many times. But just to show the data behind that, that point is absolutely true. There's tons of survey data and real world data that shows 80-90% of companies face a ransomware attack in the past year. Whereas the companies that we have on retainer with incident response, where there's a lot of training that goes into that, preparation, educating different stakeholders from legal counsel to admins to CISOs, understanding the threat intelligence, the latest tactics, techniques, and procedures those threat actors are taking to put that into your EDR tools and monitor for that type of behavior. The companies that we have under those retainers, they've only faced an incident 10% of the time, right? So just to recap that, right, about 90% of clients report facing a ransomware attack in the past year. The companies we have on retainer who properly were trained and prepared only face an incident 10% of the time. So it just goes back to preparation is, I would argue, your best way of thwarting and preventing a threat actor. And so much of that is more about people and process than technology, which is really why this is the most difficult thing. There's a lot of great technology out there from the CrowdStrikes, the Palo Altos, the Veeams, our competitors, etc. But just taking a technology and plopping it into your environment is not going to solve and prevent cybercrime, right? There's a lot of people and process associated with that in terms of doing proper BIAs, business impact assessments, to understand what's important in the environment, how much does each workload cost if it's down, to each different stakeholders understanding the communication paths and the proper channels they're supposed to take in the event of attack. So anyways, I'm going on and on here, probably brought the train off the tracks a little bit, but it just
Well,
speaks to the level of importance of that preparation here.
let me see if I can summarize it fairly succinctly in terms of maybe what the business would be looking at,
Yeah.
because those are all important things. The leaders in our radar, they stood out by delivering consistently and completely, which is what you have been talking about. But you also talked about portability and the preparation and portability. The term that stands out to me is that makes it frictionless. And you want to be as frictionless as capable in business operations because you don't want to introduce any more risk than you're already going to get by threat actors. You don't want to make an operational or a process risk, so the preparedness, the portability, and doing it in a frictionless manner is important, just as important, and maybe more important in my mind than cost, because costs can vary, and they crop up depending on maturity, depending on capability, depending on resources. There's a ton of hidden costs in there, but if I can make it frictionless and protect the operation, protect the business. Again, defending the operations, which is really what we're after here, is to me the word I would use.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And the other thing I just wanted to note on that is making it frictionless, and if I could add another word to that, making it a reality, right? I see a lot of
Yeah.
folks kind of hitting the easy button and making in this hybrid cloud world, saying, "Hey, why am I paying for a whole second data center here? Why don't we just, that I hardly ever use, right? Why don't we just make cloud our DR site, our recovery location in the events of an event of an incident?" And that sounds really good from a budget perspective, from a fantasy perspective. But have you proven that out? Have you proven out what it looks like to actually take those workloads on prem wherever they are and move them to whatever cloud provider that you're using, or is this more of a financial exercise that you participated in? And going back to the main value of Veeam in terms of that maturity and innovation is, we really make that a reality. We really make it possible to move those workloads to the cloud and meet your metrics that you need from a recovery perspective, recovery time perspective, and measure that and test it, right? So that's just the last piece I'd say about that.
Yeah. So that sounds like that's where you're showing your strength to its customers. Where do you see most companies struggle? Is it in integrating the tools, or is it managing the cost, or is it staying compliant, or in the actual governance process itself?
Yeah, it's a couple things. I mean, I think it's we've hovered around them a bit. I mean, really, I can't emphasize this more. It's one of the most common things I talk to clients about. But where they struggle the most is understanding the cost. Of cloud data protection. It's a little easier in on-prem world. You get a quote for if you have 1,000 VMs and physical machines, whatever it is, you get a quote to protect those workloads, and you understand the storage costs for the backend terabytes to protect that data, and it's really, really straightforward. It's just not the case when you start talking about these cloud workloads, right? There's snapshot costs to consider, there's API costs to consider, there's egress costs to consider, there's storage costs to consider, there's potentially licensing costs depending on which vendor you use, and all of those show up on different places. There's no like line item that says backup equals this, and it varies across cloud vendor in terms of what I just described and how that works. So I think the number one struggle is really wrangling in what these costs look like, and usually the result of that is once you kind of go through a consultative effort or an internal effort to understand those costs, it's a lot higher than the business understood. And that's by far the number one struggle. The second struggle, more from a operations perspective, is certainly kind of what you mentioned in terms of truly, if you're in this hybrid model, one client that comes to mind, a household name that people would recognize, but they literally use what they love about Veeam is they have OCI, they have GCP, they have AWS, they have VMware, they have Hyper-V. I mean, they literally have almost everything. They have Alibaba, And the ability to use from one dashboard, manage all those workloads, monitor all those workloads, report on all those workloads, comply on those workloads is so critical to them. So from a more technical standpoint, that's absolutely the other struggle. If you're 100% AWS or 100% Azure, to be frank, the native tool might do the job for you. I can make the case that there's certain functionality that as a 18-year veteran data protection solution we can offer that those native tools can't. But I don't want to get in a battle in that on this call, on this webinar. But so few customers meet that mold, right? Almost everybody I talk to is not 100% AWS, 100% GCP, whatever it might be. They have workloads across multiple clouds.
Complexity is a big issue, and exposure making it a big issue. What could be, part of the how bad is it going to be can be extinction level events. So the cost, the risk, the complexity, the operational impact, this makes it all board level concerns. These are not operational concerns per se. These are board level concerns. And so depending on where you are in that journey and that evolution, you're going to end up making the assessment, as you just pointed out. Where are you? What do you need? How much of it do you need? How complex are you? These are things that most people need guidance on, as you pointed out. They start somewhere, but they evolve into it's no longer data protection. It's defending the business, and we get back to resiliency. So if I had to simplify it out, other than frictionless, I would come back to what I stated up at the top. It's about the ability to scale across teams, across environments, data types, data volumes, data velocities, scaling. It's about the ability to secure. Data's everywhere, so you have to scale, but you have to do it in a secure manner. And then to get back to Einstein, as simply as possible, but no simpler. So scale, secure, simplify, and do that in as frictionless a way as possible. If there's one question you'd advise buyers when choosing a protection platform, do you have a question other than I'm sure you have a lot of them you would ask, but is there an overarching question you might ask them?
Yeah, well, your Einstein quote, there's something to be said when the smartest man in history his advice is to keep it simple, right? So that's pretty telling. Yeah, I mean, there's just one or two things that come to mind, right? So when anybody evaluating a vendor, whether you're evaluating us, a competitor, a native solution, whatever it might be, I mean, I would really challenge that vendor to prove to you what those day one and day two costs I talked about are. What do those look like to the business? So for example, hey, we go through a ransomware attack, and I have to restore everything from on-prem to the cloud or to a different cloud provider. What can I expect and forecast that to be from a cost perspective? And if they don't have a line item about egress and APIs and compute and things like that aren't in their evaluation, they're probably, unfortunately, it's not to go against Einstein's quote, but they're probably oversimplifying it for you and potentially
he did say, but no simpler.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. The other thing I just say, which is basically, is really just try to make sure you understand the feature parity or the feature differences across each workload, right? Is it truly, am I getting all those security threat detection capabilities? Am I getting all my incident recovery capabilities, my compliance, my reporting? Am I getting that across all platforms? And even the answer no doesn't mean don't go with that vendor, but you want to be educated on it and understand what the priorities are to your business, and at least understand that's a risk potentially.
I agree with that 100%. And as you are getting the sense, I like to kind of simplify and summarize. I think what I just heard, and maybe this is a good closing point before we go into Q&A. I don't know where we are on time, but I'll leave it to you. But to me, it comes down to this statement. We're not just backing up. We're ensuring continuity in a world of risk. And I think that nets this entire conversation up. This is the value of the broader platform, the broader maturity, the feature set, the the frictionless. We're ensuring continuity in a world of risk. How do you do that?
Yeah. We could have started with that 40 minutes ago and
Okay, my bad. But then we would only had a 1 minute webinar,
yeah,
Brad.
they'd have to reduce our pay if we did that. So,
So do we
Gentlemen,
have any questions?
we do, we do. We have a little time for questions, so let's dive into what the audience has been wondering about. And while we're here, I'm just going to also throw up a quick slide. I know you've got some great resources, and I want to make sure people don't sleep on those. So feel free to speak to this before we dive into Q&A if you would like to. I know I kind of introduced it at the beginning, but you guys are the experts.
Yeah, I mean, if a lot of what we talked about is in this radar. There's an executive summary of the ensuring continuity in a world of risk. There's a way that you can assess. Every solution has a fit. It's all about the end user and their environment. What are they needing? Are they needing capability? Are they needing resource? Are they needing both? Are they needing specificity in those capabilities and resources? And this radar gives you a tool to assess and match an RFI, if you will, your end user business needs versus those people that can supply them. And then there's capsules in there on every one of those folks that are shown here, because as I said, every solution has a fit. The question you need to ask is, does it fit me?
That's great.
And that's
Thank
what
you.
this radar is about.
So definitely go grab that report, check out the radar further. Such a valuable resource, and thanks for shedding some light on that. So first question I've got from the audience here is there central management across platforms? Maybe Brad, this will go to you.
yeah, probably more directed towards the Veeam side of the house. So, yeah, absolutely, right. So we talked about that being kind of one of those, or I mentioned it's a good question to ask when you're doing this evaluation, and yeah, that's one of the value props of Veeam is going back to that client I mentioned who literally, I mean, I don't know if you can name a hypervisor or cloud platform they don't have. I'm just kind of going through the list in my head. But one of the huge value props for them is they literally see that all in one view. They report on it, they monitor on it, they manage it, all in one dashboard and one console, which is so critical. Now I think it's important to make sure that there's. I think somebody put this to me. I don't need a single pane of glass, PANE. I need a single pane of glass, PAIN, which has always stuck with me. And being able to see from one viewpoint where the potential issues are occurring is really powerful. You don't want to be jumping around in different places when you need you need it the most.
Yeah, unification is always valuable, and sometimes beyond value. It's hard to put a value on it because it gives you that view that you're looking for. It gives you that frictionless, if you will. So you're looking for not only that unification and that central management, but in order to do that, you've got to commit to the ecosystems and be able to do as many as practical and all of them if you can. It's difficult to do that, but that would be part of that central management, which is why you're looking for someone committed to that, someone mature enough to do that, someone capable enough to do that. But there's no doubt that this particular solution we're talking about here today from this particular provider does that. But again, the word for me is unification.
I like that. And so across this theme of kind of unification and things working across several planes, my next question in the queue is, are security features the same across workloads?
Yeah, it's a good question. And actually, I was working with another household name that people would recognize, but that was they sent us their list. They had 10 requirements, and they listed them in order of priority. And this was for a purely cloud, hybrid cloud. They had multiple cloud providers, but their number one priority was the level of threat detection. And to really describe it in detail. And I think that's really critical. And, the quick answer is yes. The longer answer is it's important to understand, right? At this point, we refer to kind of bucketize our threat detection and what are we doing before a backup happens, during a backup, and after a backup, right? And there's things we're doing before a backup's ever taken to look for suspicious activity, right? So for example, when a threat actor gets in your environment, we know that they try to move laterally into your backup server. So we look and monitor for that type of suspicious behavior. Then during the backup, we do several types of inline scans to look for encrypted data, encrypted files, known tools that threat actors use, like the tools that they use to install on a server to then exfiltrate or encrypt data. And we look for those known tools. And then after the backup, post-process capabilities to make sure that you're restoring a good copy, right? You're not reinfecting the environment. And having that type of detection across not only on-prem but cloud is so critical. And a common question, just to bring it back into a more kind of eagle's eye view, is I think what's really important to understand is us and a lot of our competitor and industry in general. I hope they're not, and if they are, I would just shake their hand and tell them to have a good day. We're not coming in and saying we're the albeit threat detection and we're trying to replace your EDR tools and your XDR tools and your NDR tools and your AV scanning technology. I think that would be very disingenuous. The idea behind that is to have a defense in depth approach. If they miss something, if we're going to touch the data and move the data anyways, we can offer a level of detection. And it's important to understand one of the most common defense evasion tactics that threat actors take is they look to disable the EDR tools. So, whether that's Carbon Black, Defender, CrowdStrike, whatever it might be. So just as a quick example, they'll install their own dummy AV software that they've created, which overwrites the the actual EDR tool, and now your EDR on that endpoint is completely useless. So what I'm saying there is it kind of gives you an understanding of why the value and the purpose that us and some of our competitors provide. If you've lost that endpoint detection, at least you're still getting some comprehensive threat detection during the backup to make you aware. And then of course, if they detected everything and we detected everything, ransomware wouldn't be in business. So that just speaks to the importance of having something there for you after the backup to ensure if you are dealing with a 0 day or something that completely evaded all your detection tools, that you still have something in place to ensure you're restoring your last known good. So long answer there, but I think providing that context is helpful.
And my view is, that context is important because what you're talking about is feature and capability. I'll bring it back to the view of the operation itself. What I hear is, and the reason you want what that question addressed is, I need consistency. I need less friction. I need lower costs, which means I don't have silos of capabilities or missing capabilities that expose me to further risk. So there's a consistency and a completeness there relative to the answer to that particular question that has immense operational value.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I'd love to keep picking your brains here, but I think we're pushing up against time. So, as kind of a final wrap question, Daryl, Brad, is there anything you want to leave the audience with today, based around this topic that you think is just really something they should have in mind? Or if they're just super excited, they want to follow up, take next steps, what should they do? Where should they go? You can answer both, one, however you like.
I'll go first, Brad, because it's your webinar, so I'll let you have the last word. But I'll bring it back to two things I've already said. If I had to summarize it, I'd summarize it: scale, secure, and simplify in that order. That's the bar for modern resilience, and I will emphasize resilience. And then the second point I would make, we've already made. We're not just backing up. We're ensuring continuity in a world of risk, and that's what we have here is a world of risk.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just to piggyback off that, and if I had to wrap this up, is to just really make sure in whatever vendor you're evaluating or whatever project you're taking up in this hybrid cloud segment is you truly understand the plan that you have in place to recover that data, whether it's operational or in a full scaled out incident, and you've tested that. What does the business actually think you can do versus what's reality? And it's a very difficult conversation, and sometimes you want to avoid those conversations because it might make you look bad, but you don't want to be in a situation where the reality gap is very significant between what the business thinks you can do versus what you can actually do. And so I would just encourage folks to, whether you already have a hybrid solution, to test that and see what those metrics look like. And if you're evaluating it, truly evaluate it in a way that you would use in real life. So yeah, thank you. This was really great. I enjoyed the time, Daryl. It was always great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I enjoy talking with you as well. You're a wealth of actual practical experience. So this is always a learning experience for me.
Brad, Daryl, it's been a pleasure for me as well, listening to you, being able to pose you some of these questions, and definitely look forward to what's coming down the pipeline, and hearing from you over the coming months and years as well. So have a great rest of your day, and thanks for making this all possible.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Alrighty, well, gentlemen, thank you so much again. This has been an absolute pleasure. If you're out there in the audience and you didn't get your question answered, I do apologize, but don't fret. We'll be passing on all of this information to Veeam and the team. Quick reminder there to hop into the Docs tab if you haven't already and grab any of those resources you want to grab before we wrap things up here. Now, we are going to be launching a very quick survey. Deanna, our webinar coordinator of the day, is launching that now, and this survey is just a very quick pulse check from us at Actual Tech to you. We're basically wondering, how are we doing? What are you liking? What are you not liking? Is the moderation great? Are you liking the platform, the speakers, the material? So again, just quick, 1 out of 5. You can pop in there, give us your feedback. We're not sharing it with anyone. This is just between us and you, and I consider this a favor. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Now finally, let's have that last bit of fun and give away our prize for today. Yes. Quick reminder, you do need to be live and present for the duration of today's webinar to win. But other than that, let's give this thing away. And so winner of today's $250 Amazon gift card is Anthony Seto from New Jersey. Anthony, huge congrats to you there. And as always, we will be in touch about how you can claim your prize after we wrap the webinar today. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I just want to give one final thank you to Veeam for making today's event possible. A giant thank you to our speakers for being so engaging and interesting and full of super interesting information. Did I say interesting twice? Well, it was that interesting. So, and finally, a huge thank you to all of you. The biggest thank you to our audience for joining, for taking time out of your busy schedules and making this a priority to learn and be here today. So again, big thank you to you. Really appreciate it. And until I see you on another webinar, I'm wishing you an absolutely magical rest of your days. Take care, everybody.